Hello, hello, hello. This is Corey Thompson from Above TV, Rose Gauntlet, Play to Z, Dice, Gen Con, all sorts of stuff.
And this is Stephen Bonacore, the Podfather of gaming. You are listening to Board Games Insider, episode 364, and we're recording this from the middle of the Pacific Ocean on May 6th, 2025.
It's episode 368, by the way.
What did I say?
364.
I did? It
You
says it.
lost four episodes in your
I
vacation.
says it right there. I can't read. I'm ultra professional here. Ultra professional. Board Games Insider, powered by Board Game Geek. Corey, we're steaming towards Seattle right now. You probably should meet me there, just to greet me as I arrive
Yeah,
back in the
not a
United
problem.
States.
It's like a 16-hour drive. I'll be fine.
16 hours from where you live. But it's been one wild adventure, a great time. But you, of course, have been running around like crazy too. What's going on in the life of Corey Thompson?
It's actually pretty boring. I'm back from the gathering of friends. Nothing's been going on for the past week.
Look at that.
Been chilling at home, eating boring food, which I never thought I would say is actually kind of a relief. And getting ready for the next things. RageCon in Reno is going to be at the end of June, from June 27th to June 29th. Special
Hmm.
guest, of course, is going to be Daryl Andrews, who's going to come and stay with me for a good chunk of July. I'm really
Wow.
looking forward to that. But honestly, not a whole lot going on here. And I'm sure the story's exactly the same with you. You're in a boring place and nothing's going on.
So so yesterday, this is May 6th, as I mentioned. We had May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, twice, which blows the mind when you think about how the whole thing works. But literally, we crossed the international date line. It was May 5th, and we crossed the international date line, and it became May 5th again. It technically just jumped into May 6th when we were crossing, and then went back to May 5th. So Cinco de Mayo times two. The margaritas were flowing and things like that. I did catch a cold, as you can probably hear it in my voice right now. But that's okay. Funny thing is, I do not recall having a cold at all in the last 5 years. COVID kept us all isolated, and I got a great immune system.
Yeah.
Finally, I'm on a cruise ship with 4,000 people, and I got a cold. So, it happens. But it's been an amazing month of doing all of this. Of course, I've been mentioning all the amazing ports. We are 2 days from Seattle right now. We'll spend an overnight there on the ship. The ship gets in on the 8th. We actually leave the ship on the 9th. So we'll get to see Seattle on the 8th and stuff like that and fly home. And finally, I'll have a little bit of downtime. But in the meantime, I still have more gaming to do while we're at sea. And I immediately will leave this show and I will go to the conference center where the games are going on and I will play War of the Ring, a four-player
Of
game.
course.
A four-player game. My first one of these for the. I played a lot of Tishu while I'm here, and I've taught like a dozen people Tishu, which is great. So trying to get people to really appreciate that game, which I love very much. So we again, the news never stops here. So let's get to the event deck. All right. So the first thing gets back to the bankruptcy. And
Yeah, yeah.
that we now have the courts deciding, since the Alliance Entertainment Group, that publicly traded company, decided to pull out and is now suing everybody, like suing everybody for breach of
They're
contract.
mad.
They're really, really angry about the whole thing. And Universal, which was the original stalking horse bid, has
Right,
come in and bought quite a bit, as well as Ad Populum, which is the parent company of NECA and WizKids. So
right.
that's where we are right now.
And basically, there's so much mess going on that the court has decided who can buy what assets. And this is a report from ICV2 saying who's allowed to buy what. And it basically comes down to, like you said, Universal and Ad Populum are divvying up Alliance and Diamond.
My biggest part of this that I haven't seen yet is, well, what was the final number that, that Universal and Ad Populum are actually
Yeah.
paying for all this? We haven't seen any reporting on it yet. That's got to be public record. So I'm really looking to see if the number was what Universal came and said they would pay for it. Did things have to go down because of all of the
Well, the numbers
shenanigans?
changed now because, like we said, this is now kind of tainted goods. Um, the buyer, Alliance Entertainment, who sued to be able to buy in the face of the stalking horse bid, almost immediately said, "No, this is awful. No one told us how awful this is. We're not buying." And are now suing because they're angry about it.
Right.
So the value, I can imagine, is just crashed, and they're selling off assets.
But we don't know that until it's
We
actually
don't
in
know.
writing. We'll have to just wait and see
Well,
what it
what
is.
we do know is Universal Distribution is acquiring the assets of Alliance game distributors. NECA and WizKids, their parent company Ad Populum, is acquiring the assets of Diamond Comic
Right.
distributors, along with Diamond Book distributors, Diamond Select Toys and Collectibles, Collectible Grading Authority, and a few other
Yeah.
related assets. So
Univ
that's the bottom line from this story.
Universal wanted the game distribution portion,
Right.
right? The Alliance game distributors, and they weren't looking for the rest, as far as I could tell from this
I
entire
think they've
story.
partnered with NECA and WizKids to bring up the bid and
Okay.
give them the stuff they didn't want.
Yep. 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 Makes sense. But there will definitely be more here as we get all of those details.
Sure.
This is a very interesting one, Corey, and I'd like you to take lead on this one. The New
Yeah, of
York
course.
Times interviewed Dane Chapin, the owner of TheOP.
Right. So it is an op-ed column. Let's put that right up front. So this is an opinion piece written by Brett Stevens, who is a good friend of Dane Chapin.
Interesting.
So what I think this is really worth reading, and I don't want to get political here, but what this is an interview with Dane Chapin, who is pro-Trump but also anti-tariff.
Sure.
So it's a pretty well written article about this rethinking of the world and what's really going on and restructuring his views because the OP has been hit very hard by the tariffs. Several people have taken this story and pulled pieces of it out to emphasize certain parts. The biggest thing is there's a short section uh, that talks about the tariffs and how expensive the tariffs are. And Dane had said when talking about the tariffs going to 145%, that it potentially will cost the company, the OP, an additional $920,000 to get their
Right.
games.
Right.
And Dane was quoted as saying, these goods might now make a round trip to China to allow us to avoid the 145% tariff until the more permanent and lower tariff is decided on, unquote. And that was pulled by ICV2 as saying the OP is returning goods to China. Don't know for sure if the OP ever did this,
Right.
but this is something that lots of publishers have been talking about. Is it better to grin and bear it, charge more money, and bring your goods in, or is it better to warehouse your goods in China, wait for the world to get less chaotic and hopefully cheaper, and then deal with it?
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely insane. That it's probably right that they did not just send them back. I mean, that just sounds weird. But the thought process of warehousing it, at the manufacturer's location or
yeah.
thereabouts is something that nobody here has ever contemplated in this
Well, and
industry.
we always should keep open minds about things. And I do like a well-written non-political article talking about this conflict of belief that Dane's going through. My favorite quote from the article is, quote, with Trump, I thought maybe there might be a method to the madness. Now I'm concerned that there is madness to his method, unquote. I
Great
thought that
quote.
was really interesting. And again, I'm trying not to get political on any of this, but it's a view of how badly the tariffs are hurting the industry, even for people who are pro-Trump.
And from that, we'll definitely move into the next story, that Tabletop Tycoon is acquiring Canvas from
Yeah.
R2I Games, and this is on ICV2 as well.
And so Canvas was, of course, a very popular game, and the IP is worth a decent amount of money. This is a 2021 title from Jeff Chin and Andrew Nerger. Road to Infamy Games has sold the IP rights to Tabletop Tycoon, um, along with the two expansions, Canvas Reflections and Canvas Finishing Touches. Um, so it's interesting that small companies, likely because of the situation in the world, are having trouble and they're trying to generate cash flow. And one of the ways to do this is to sell off their popular IPs. What this means for Road to Infamy Games, I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know. This was their number one title. So there's always that catch 22. If you sell off your number one money making title,
Then what?
then what? Yeah, exactly.
In this market, that's a really potentially negative sign. GAMA picks Baltimore as their new home for the annual GAMA Expo, after the trade event quickly outgrew their home in Louisville, Kentucky, where Corey and I, of course, went this year. This is
And Louisville was fantastic. It felt more like a big convention. Lots of people. The space was great. I don't think anybody was really upset with Louisville, other than the normal, it's hard to get there.
yes,
Louisville, of course, was easier for the majority of the people who attended to get to than Rito was. Um, Keep in mind, Gamma by design switches locations every 3 to 4 years. They make short contracts and they try to migrate location all over the US to try to give everybody an opportunity to attend.
yeah. So, while there's been a little bit of, oh God, Baltimore kind of like sentiment that I've heard out there. It's certainly, putting it in in an area like Baltimore, absolutely can grow this to even beyond what it's already been with its record attendance because of the amount of people in the Boston
Yeah.
to Washington corridor, by far the most populated area of the
Should
country.
say that the Louisville convention rose 37% in
Right,
attendance.
right.
So more than 2,700 people
Yeah, I like
and
Louisville too.
300. Louisville was nice. And
Yeah,
it will continue. It's not like they're dumping Louisville in order to go to Baltimore. There was a scheduled, we will be at Louisville for this many years, and they're deciding where to go after that contract ends. So
right,
this is all par for the course.
right.
I think the big debate is Baltimore as a city has had a big roller coaster kind of history. There's been areas that have really gone downhill and areas that have been tried to build up and be better. There's always debates. Any big city, there's debates about safety, size, what can they do, what sort of food is around, can people safely walk around, and Baltimore is no different. They're gonna debate all this.
Right, exactly. So now we get to some of the big boys, like WotC, and the lead designer for D&D, Jeremy Crawford, is stepping down, as reported on ICV2. In a statement posted
Yeah,
to Facebook on April 25th, Crawford stated that nearly 18 years ago, I joined the D&D team at Wizards of the Coast to work on a game that has inspired me and so many others. In my years on the team, I worked with amazing writers, editors, art directors, artists, graphic designers, and others to create numerous D&D books, including the core books for 5th edition D&D. So he is looking now to just expand his horizons. It doesn't seems like it's a very amicable thing, but people do change, and we wish him the best.
yeah.
And it's obviously when somebody of such note, I don't know Jeremy personally, but somebody of such note, lead designer for Dungeons and Dragons leaves, it's always a very interesting event.
And we are an industry where people do tend to move company to company. It's interesting that he's leaving Wizards of the Coast. There's no announcement of where he's going next or what's going next, other than he's going somewhere. So hopefully, we've got some exciting stuff still coming from Jeremy.
Right, right. Atomic Mass Games, which is a division of Asmodee, they are the ones who do most of the miniatures games, I guess you can say.
Right, right.
Um, they're delaying releases due to tariffs. And this is a another ICV2 article. Atomic Mass Games delaying the U.S. release of three products originally scheduled for June, which it attributed to the evolving U.S. tariff situation. For its Marvel Crisis Protocol game, Atomic Mass delayed the release of Avalanche, Exodus, and Lady Mastermind, originally scheduled for June 13th release. They did not delay Phoenix and Phoenix Unleashed, scheduled for the same release date. And my guess on that is probably due to that one got here
One
in
made it
time
through and one didn't.
and
Yeah.
one is going to sit in China until kind of thing. No new release dates have been announced, but as we've been talking about, it's
Well, the other one that was delayed is Outer Rim Outlaws and IG series assassin droids for Star Wars Legion. Uh, and the thing is, with the tariffs, a lot of people immediately go to why don't we just produce in the US? And there are certain things that are just impossible for us to produce in the US. And the biggest among those is plastics.
yep,
Plastic miniatures, plastic components. We just don't have the infrastructure, the machinery, the factories, the people, the labor. We don't have any of it. If we tried to do it in the US, we would inevitably get something three times the price and half the quality. And Atomic Mass is in the unique situation that that's kind of all they do.
yep.
They do miniatures and plastics. So, of course, the option to produce somewhere else is very limited.
Exactly the case. I always said that China has 75 years of injection molding facilities throughout the country in their manufacturing areas. You just don't create that overnight. And you just don't
Well,
create that period really, because if
on
you
top of
did it,
that,
as you said, it would take
yeah.
an unbelievable investment, and it would just that the quality wouldn't be as good for the longest period of time, etc.
And China does supplement their
Yep.
industry through the government. So we can't create that sort of industry overnight. China can. They supplement it. The government pays industry to make new products like this. And on
Right.
top of that, with very, very inexpensive labor.
Right. Exactly. So the Mensa Award winners are announced. The, ever so important Mensa Award winners for our industry. No, they're
It's
really
it's a
not.
pretty big deal for those of us who grew up reading Games Magazine as the only source of the best games of the year. We
Right.
heard a lot about the Mensa
We
Award
did. We
winners.
absolutely did. So what's the story here, Corey, with the
So
Mensa Awards?
it's an award that's been around for a very long time. Mensa, of course, is the American Mensa organization, is a group dedicated to higher learning and intelligence, and there's entrance exams and things like that if you want to be a member of Mensa. They've picked their game winners, board games for the Mensa Select seal on the packaging. And the winners are Agueda City of Umbrellas by 25th Century Games, Diatoms by 25th Century Games,
Wow.
which is a fantastic one. This was actually one of the Cardboard Edison winners and was an amateur game brought full scale into production, and it's been very popular. So congratulations there. Farms Race Deluxe Edition, which is a self-published from Farms Race LLC. Hutan from TheOP USAopoly, and that is the second game in a trilogy of games from Sidekick and TheOP. In the Footsteps of Marie Curie has won 2025 from Hachette Board Games, Plundering Times from Simply Fun, and Treasure of the Dragons from Fox Mind Games. So congratulations to all the winners of the Mensa Select.
Yeah, and as we mentioned when we talk about awards, these kind of awards, while they do have a nostalgia effect for a lot of people who remember the Mensa Awards, been around forever, they don't have a really don't have a material impact on the ultimate sales in the hobby, at least. But we do, it's always good to see hobby related games. 25th Century Games is certainly a hobby game company. It's great to see them, for instance, getting so many, getting two awards. It's great.
Yeah. Just want to go back a little bit.
Hmm.
One of the other news articles from ICV2 is Ares Games
Oh, we missed it.
has partnered a deal to distribute games from Tabula Games in English-speaking countries. The first two games to fall under this partnership are Mystheria and Volfarian Guilds, which are both releasing in July. So Tabula has done some higher level crowdfunding games, and it's nice now that they're partnering with Ares, who's kind of an established big publisher in the industry, big name. So we'll get more distribution, more visualization of these great titles from Tabula.
Right. Exactly. We have one more, don't we, Corey?
This is a
This
really
is great.
interesting one. So Uh, Backerkit, my cute little title for this is Backerkit is crowdfunding
Backerkit.
Backerkit. And it's a little more complex than this. There is a crowdfunding platform called WeFunder, which is a really high level um, crowdfunding platform. This is an investment platform.
Yep.
Just to show you what sort of thing the levels in which you can invest are $1 million, $500,000, $100,000. This is Shark Tank level. I'm going to invest in your company for a big amount of money to hopefully keep your company going. So Backerkit has started, well, technically hasn't started yet. The crowdfunding on WeFunder will start on May 7th. So we've got a day still. By the time you're listening to this, it will be ongoing. But there's all sorts of details about where is Backerkit now, what is Backerkit's view and goals, how much money do they have, are they looking for? It's a really interesting look into both the positives and the negatives that Backerkit is going through.
So just to correct or to go through it a little bit deeper. So things like wefunder.com is angelinvest.com. There's these
Yeah.
other websites. They when a company goes and puts themselves up there, they're looking to raise capital, but in doing so, it's not alone. They're giving you part of the company. And for this particular investment, Backerkit, you for as little as $100 can own part of Backerkit. Now, for your $100 investment, don't think you're going to own very much of it because um, their valuation that they're putting it out there is $89 million. That's what they're valuing the company, and they're selling shares in the company at a valuation of $89 million. Um, I did a little math just very quickly just now. And if these numbers here that I'm looking at, it says highlights of the company. They had explosive growth in 2024, 70% user increase, 2x funds were raised last year. And they said they had 23.7 million in revenue. Now, I'm assuming that means not like what was funded, right? It sounds like that's the amount of money that they made in top line revenue, not the
Well, they're
final profit.
separating out they're separating out revenue from profit. So in the same year where there was 24 million in revenue, they're reporting almost 900,000 in the hole for profits.
Oh, I don't see that here.
It's in the chart for 2024,
Aha. So they said they lost almost $1 million in the year that they brought that their revenue was 23.7 million.
right?
Well, as you know, Corey, I am not a financial advisor. And if I was a financial advisor, I'm not your or anybody who's listening to me financial advisor.
He's my
Um,
financial advisor.
but just literally looking at this at the 10,000, 100,000 foot level, they're asking for 3.76 times forward revenue, what that would be called forward revenue. 89 million divided by 23.7 million is 3.76 rounded. Um, which certainly sounds to me to be quite a large valuation. And if they're actually losing money, well, caveat emptor. This is interesting. If you want to own a piece of this, go check it out on wefunder.com/Backerkit, and you could make your own decision if you think it's a good investment for you. Corey will be investing, I think. I heard that.
Oh, wait, 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 wait,
All right.
wait.
In the meantime, that's the news, and there was a lot, but we're gonna move right on into strategy and tactics. Thank you again, everybody, for posting questions. We're doing great. The questions that we're going to take today are from the end of last year, December 30th, and one of the questions comes from Christopher Engler. He's at Reading Useless Message at Reading on BGG. Hello, friends. I've been pitching various game designs for a few years now, and I got my first yes from a small but great publisher in October 2024. During the meeting, they discussed what the contract would include and the desire for a solo mode. Okay. Since then, however, there's been no contact. I delivered all the digital assets and gave an update on the requested solo mode in November, but I've still not heard back from them. So here are many questions. How often should I reach out to them for updates? And if they don't reply, how long should I wait before I begin pitching this game to other publishers? Like right there, I'm just going to say, do you have a contract? I mean, is it signed, right? Do you have a signed
Yeah.
contract?
If there's a contract, it should say whether you're allowed to pitch to other
Well,
publishers, and it should give a timeout date.
Well, right. I mean, normally, if you have a signed contract with them, they now
The answer is
own the
no.
rights. You
Yeah.
can't be doing that. But it looks like reading here between the lines, yeah, since he does not have a contract. Okay, I read this a little more closely. No contract. How long should he wait? Well, if they said they were going to go to contract in October and literally they have not heard back, you have not heard back in a month, I'd give them a little longer and say, ladies and gentlemen, please, why have
Yeah.
you not spoken to me?
I
I
think
just
it's
need to know.
more I think it's more a discussion of this isn't specific to the game industry. This is how do you deal with the social
Sure.
little loopholes and niceties? How often do I say, "Hey, Steven, you promised to do me this," before I get annoying?
Yeah.
Um, and it's playing it by ear. You give little nudges. You certainly don't let it go completely. There's no legal basis or contract basis for how often you can bug them.
Sure.
And you have to kind of weigh if you bug them enough, you've crashed the possibility of a contract, which
Sure.
may be to your benefit. It's just weighing the social niceties.
Yeah, exactly. And that's well put. I certainly, after not hearing for a month, I would press a little harder. But certainly, if they said they were going to contract and you sent them all the stuff and you have not heard back, it's not a good sign. Um, just try a little bit more, and if that doesn't work out, then send them a note saying, "Hey, guys, I believe that we're not going to be doing business together because I've not heard back from you," and then move on. It does happen occasionally. It's sad when it does.
And
Steven,
certainly in December 2024, we don't need to worry about things like shipping and
yep,
tariffs.
it wasn't that at the time. So hopefully he's got the contract all laid out by now. Steven Sauer from Canada, he's at Steven Sauer. Let's say you pick up a small game at your friendly local game store with a theme and gameplay really excites you. Woo. When you turn it over, what player count would you be most excited to see it plays? And or what player count would you be disappointed to see? Okay, so just a personal question to us two guys here. Um, Corey, I mean, you see something, it just looks cool. What number of players do you want to see on that little box? Small card game.
I'd be okay with any number of players. Part of my excitement in buying it is what I'm targeting for. I'm excited to see two-player games because
Ah,
I feel like there's a dearth of two-player games that I have that are really designed to be two-player games. I'm also, if the game looks really cool and exciting, if I see a four-player, three-player, I, that's going to get played as well. I'm excited. And if I see 20 players, I'm going to reread those rules and see does this work with 20 players, but I'll be excited about that too. Where I get disappointed are big ranges. If I see 2 to 6, then I'm going to sit and go, well, it's probably garbage at 2, and it might be garbage at 3, and it's probably garbage at 6.
I
So
just hope.
there's more thought process if I see a large range of players.
I mean, I can say that, but it's a little bit opinionated. It's garbage at two
It's
and three.
Well,
Um,
don't you hold by the old adage that if you see a large range of players, that the lowest player count, the highest player count are probably tacked on, and they're probably not as good as the middle.
no, but
You don't go by that.
I don't. I do kind of say if I do see some large 2 to 8, right, some big, right, I say like, okay, it's probably really made for the larger player counts because you wouldn't just like throw players into the mix. So I would actually be excited about that because I can just grab it with any number of players.
Well,
And
your classic big board game is going to be 2 to 5,
two to
and you
four, but two to
know,
four is
no,
really kind of your classic.
nowadays they will list two
Nowadays.
to five
Oh, listen here.
because if it's at all possibly playable at 5, they'll list 5. It's probably garbage at 5. And 2 probably has a completely separate rule set that is crippled on or band-aided on.
Obviously, we have some
Uh,
differences of opinion here on that because and also I have this penchant for wanting to see high player counts in games. I want to see that because I'm a
sure.
social person, and if I grab something and I see a bunch of people, I'm like, hey, let's all get together. That's why Flip Seven is one of my
Oh,
favorite
it's
little games
great.
because
And Flip 7
every
lists
person in the
3 to
room,
18 on Flip 7.
sit
Do
down,
you
let's
think
play.
it's good at 3?
No,
Because the lowest player count is always tacked on at the bottom.
it's not it's not worth playing at three. Let's put it that way.
Uh-huh.
All right, you're a jerk. Chris Dupree, he's at C Dupree. Hey, Chris. Just wondering if there are any game reviews that are AI generated. Huh. Also, will there be a possibility that this podcast may be created by an AI podcast generator with your voices, assuming someone creates detailed show notes for you guys? So so
Oh.
first of all, I don't even know if that's possible, but let's just
Uh, it's
excuse
possible.
me. So
I could, I think, in 2 weeks, make a perfect Stephen Bonacore AI voice.
you could do that.
Yeah.
I like to see it then. I'd like to see you do it. You probably don't. You want to use this one because
I don't want to support these systems.
well,
It's,
you could do it and not
well,
sell it. I mean, you're just gonna. Oh, you
I
have to
know
pay for
for
it.
a
Okay,
fact,
all right.
yeah, I know for a fact that it's not difficult to make passable AI voices.
But will the podcast be able to be generated by feeding it the
Never.
news? Yeah, not with our absurd banter.
It
But
is possible. It can be generated. I don't think it'll be good.
yeah, it won't be. But it's it's just kind of funny that we're reading this question here from Chris at this moment. For the first time ever, after I hit the record button on the video in Zoom, I also hit the AI button. So and if anybody doesn't know what that does, it's actually amazing. And I use it for one of my role-playing games that uses Zoom. And it literally gives you like a meeting summary, key action points, and then a detailed log of all the stuff you did. And it does it like quote in character because we each have our characters' names there and we're addressing each other as characters. So it's like it's pretty funny and pretty darn accurate what it then spits back, all in text, of course. Not it doesn't do it in language. So very interesting. That was a great question for this moment, and I can't wait to see what the AI tells us that this episode was about and what it thinks was the most important things. Let's see. How are we doing here on time? Can we take one more? Let's take another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Dupree, he's on a roll here. Not sure if somebody has asked this yet. If they have, you can ignore it. Since the board game industry generates $8 billion in sales, is that the right number? It's something in that area.
I
I think
think if
he's
you include mass market, I think a significant percentage of that would be monopoly sales.
uh, um, do you see gains in sales in the next few years, or will the market oversaturate itself? Also, is there a rough breakdown of the major companies getting a slice of the $8 billion pie? Um, I think we're almost consistently in a growth um, phase. I mean, growth has slowed significantly we had double-digit growth year
Yeah.
after year after year for a dozen years. I mean, since ever since I got in the industry and before that, way before that, we just saw these massive growths, and it's slowed to a more normal industry of a few percentage points. And Asmodee is obviously a public company, and they've released these numbers. Like, what kind of growth did they see, and where did they see negative growth? Right? Where did things retract, retrench, whatever the number is, what word is. So, do I think we're going to still see growth? Yes. Do I think we're going to see lots of companies depart? Sadly, yes, especially in the current economic and tariff situations that are going on. I think we're seeing how many companies are ready. We should probably be keeping a scorecard, Corey, on how many companies have already left the industry just this year due to the
6.
uncertainty in tariffs. Is that actually the number? Is that
I
the
was
number?
trying.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's
It's
around
pretty
that.
close. It's 4 to 6. Yeah.
It's,
Uh,
some of them are retailers, some of them are publishers. So it's pretty crazy. One was not related to tariffs, but the whole debacle with Diamond Comics and
yeah.
Alliance Distribution. I'm going to consider them as a failed company that is just rebooting itself now because they went into bankruptcy. So very interesting. So we'll see how it plays out.
I've got Greater Than Games, Final Frontier, Underdog, and Borderlandia so far. And then I have a number of likelies, which are my own opinions.
Right, right, right. Well, keep this list. I mean, we're not rooting for this. Let's make sure everyone understands.
No,
We are
no.
specifically rooting for everybody to be able to continue to exist, to grow in a free trade environment, which is not the case right now. So let's hopefully we can get back to there. And now let's get over to playtesting. So Corey, you asked a very interesting question that people were kind of not answering it the way I thought that they would be answering it.
No, it was very different. I think I hit a nerve. So the question was, what is the price level that is the dividing line for you between a not expensive game and an expensive game? $50, $60, $70, less, more. And I was hoping to go through this list and just tally all the numbers and
Yeah.
find, but the most common answer was it depends on the game.
And that's exactly not what I was asking people. I mean, or you were asking, and then I kind of, after you put it there, and then I kind of rephrased it. I was trying to drive people to, you got some money. What makes a game expensive for you? What makes a game cheap for you? Well, what's that line? That's where I was driving. But people say, well, it
And I
depends on.
think they went more towards value. So for a
Yes,
little
yes, they
card
did.
game, for a little tiny card game, $30, $40 might be expensive. But for
Right.
a giant miniatures epic,
Sure.
120 might be expensive.
Right, right. So it was they took a different track, and that's fine. It's everyone's show here. We're asking you questions, so it depends on how you would like to answer them. I'll take a couple of things here. Brian Carroll said this is super subjective. Is that really depends on how much game you're getting. So this is
Yeah.
exactly what I didn't want, but that's fine. It's fine, Brian. What I mean is that how deep is the gameplay? How are the components, etc. So really, it's more like a game by game basis. For example, I got the Hero Quest re-release for $50, which was great, and I feel I would have also been worth it for 100. On the other hand, if I paid $50 for Mooncrawlers or Age of War, I'd consider that expensive. So he really is
Yeah.
going. He's diving deep into the
Well,
what's the
most people did
gameplay.
this, and I think they were taking it as an ask of value,
Hmm.
rather than an ask of just sheer money
Right,
amount,
right.
which I understand. It
Yep.
is a really tough question. So Nick Shaw said, that's a really tough question. It
Yeah.
depends on the game. A small single deck card game, I think that above $25 is expensive, but a Ticket to Ride size Euro box board game would be a steal at 25. And
Right.
a big box game like Anniversary or Deluxe Edition, such as Awakened Realms Castles of Burgundy would be considered cheap at $100.
Right.
But a Euro game at that price is way into being expensive. On average, though, if I went with an average size game box and an average weight, physical and complexity, around $60 is what I'd consider a dividing line between not expensive versus expensive.
Right, right, right. And that's uh, the interesting line that I actually picked it at 60, that I would say 60 becomes it's one side it's kind of cheap and one side it's kind of expensive. Kevin Mann broke it down a little bit more detailed. He said cheap. And then they use the like, when you look at a restaurant like on Google, it has like $1 sign, $2 signs, $3 signs to see, right? So he did cheap, $1 sign, under $20, normal, $2 signs, 20 to 50, expensive, $3 signs, 51 to 100, and luxury, $4 signs, over 100. And he said at luxury level, I currently own four: Crocodile, Foundations of Rome, Agamemnon, Agamonia, and Frosthaven. So that's kind of he broke the question down even a little bit more. I kind of like the way he did that.
I actually, and don't get me wrong, I like the discussion that's going on
Yeah,
here a lot. It's just not what I anticipated. I'm
yeah,
kind of surprised.
exactly.
So Guido Van Horn wrote, depends on the box size. A small card box game, $15. Small board game box, $25. Carcassonne size, $39. Ticket to Ride size, $59. And bigger than that, $99. So we've got breakdowns on every type of game and where that boundary is, where it gets expensive.
Very, very cool. Thank you everybody for those answers. Corey, you did give us the new one for this week. Why don't you read it to us?
And I'm truly curious about this. Do you play games solo? If so, what's your favorite game to play in solo mode? And if you don't play solo games, why not? If some of your favorite all-time games had a solo mode, would you play them solo? So, of course, this is excluding games that are made just to be played solo. This
Sure.
is asking, do you play your multiplayer board games also solo? I can tell you I'm curious about it because I generally don't. I might go through a couple turns to figure out how to play, but when I do that, I'm not using the solo rules, I'm using the multiplayer rules.
Interesting.
But I
Yep, yep.
don't think I've ever taken a multiplayer board game and played it solo. I don't think I've ever done that. I do own some solo only board games, which I play on occasion. Friday, the card game, Nemo's War. They're great solo games. But I was really curious if there's a lot of people out there playing their multiplayer games by themselves.
Right, right. So I'm not a solo player, and like you, I think that what I would do is if I was going to just learn the game, I'll kind of play it solo, but I'm playing multiplayer as I'm playing it alone just to run through it. Um, Solo play is and has been a big thing over the last several years because of, you only have so many times to be out with people and bring people over to your house or get to a game store. So people want to play solo games. So having a solo mode is always a big plus for a publisher. However, it's not something that everybody does. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting question to see what that kind of breakdown is. Some people are going to just say, nope, don't play solo. And they're going to be gone with the question. And others are going to be like, well, if I could play War of the Rings solo, yeah, I would be doing it right now. Which actually is kind of true for me. If there was an app and I could play it solo against an AI, I would play it solo against the AI. But that's an
But
app and that's
are
different.
you really
No,
playing it solo?
well,
If you're
no,
playing just you versus a computer opponent,
correct. It's not solo. I agree. That is not what we're talking about as being solo, right? We're talking about you're now going to beat the system which the game itself is developing for you. So I have already created that thread out there, Corey. I've done
you're
it.
so smart.
I'm so good. Please go over to the guild on BGG and find the playtesting thread for this question and post your answer to it. Maybe we'll get to it next week. In the meantime, let's get to final scoring. Thank you so much for listening and dealing with my voice. Help us spread the word about this podcast by telling your friends to download Board Games Insider wherever they like to get their podcasts or watch Board Games Insider on the Podfather of Gaming YouTube channel. Do you want to be part of this podcast? You can. Just go to our guild on Board Game Geek and first become a member. Then ask us questions for our strategy and tactics segment. Answer our question to you from the playtesting segment. It's easy. Just do it. Please interact with us on social media. The handle is the same on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Go check us out at Board Games Insider, Portal Games US, Podfather Gaming, Dice Tower Dish, Play2Z Games, and Above Board TV. And when you're talking to people, when you actually post in response, you're talking directly to us. So please post, read, and post responses there. Special call out, of course, to the YouTube channels. That's Portal Games Studio, The Podfather of Gaming, and Above Board TV. We'd love to see you in person at an upcoming convention. So if you do see us there, please come over. That'll be RageCon for Corey coming up really
Yeah.
soon. So that's going to be fun, I'm sure. And Board Games Insider was professionally edited by Jake Thompson. Thank you, Jake, for being part of the team.
And
And
that great voice you hear during our intro, outro, and in between segments is that of Ray Greenlee. He can be contacted to do voiceover work at raygreenleevoiceover.com.
perfect timing, Corey, who saved me from that cough. I had to hit my mute button as I coughed badly just now. Thank you.
No worries at all.
Any other little notes we want to share with people, or are we ready to wrap it?
I have had an incredibly boring, well-deserved boring, and delightfully boring week.
Well,
So,
good for you. Good for you. And thank you for helping out with all the news because you've been really contributing and scraping news for us. So thanks a lot for that.
hey,
Every
maybe I'll not be the intern soon.
Ignacy, by the way, couldn't make it today. He had a game night, and we're doing it at an off time because I'm on the high seas. So it didn't work out for him. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.
See you later, everyone.